Hello. So in this video, I'm going to talk about um sort of like the philosophy of what it's like to be a space alien, or more particularly, the only space alien. So I'm going to go into some philosophical thoughts, and I call these this philosophy of the only space alien amongst all the humans to be. If I was the only space alien, suppose this that this is essentially like, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it's essentially like, I call it neuristic. So it's the philosophy is called Norism. Therefore, um alien thoughts are called neuristic. So then the language spoke of the alien would be Nor. So I call this Norism, essentially, is what this philosophy is called, to be implied that I was the only space alien. So part of being the only space alien would be to sort of realize one was the void, or you question, is the space alien the void? If the space alien is present inside the void, I suppose the space alien like this is present inside the void, yet it's also the void. It's kind of like that. So the void is essentially like, it's the void. It's like what's behind outer space. So it's like the, if this is the, like, imagine like you look at your hand and you can't see what's behind your hand. So that's what I would call nothingness, or the void, because you can't see what's behind your hand, what you're looking at. But it's essentially to be the void is essentially what it's like to be the alien. Yet also to recognize that despite being the void, you're present inside the void. So at this point, you're sort of like, you start thinking about yourself and like your neuristic thoughts and like what it's like to be a space alien. So this is what I'm writing about in my book, because it's a book on philosophy titled "My Critique of Statements," and it essentially implies, if you take this with a grain of salt, if you don't, you know, I might not be a space alien, man, but it's essentially like, what's the perception of a space alien like? So the an alien essentially is floating. The alien is floating. So the perception of the alien is like that of a dragon. So the way I perceive the world is like this of a dragon, but the alien is essentially floating. So I use the word float to describe this. So you're floating. So you float. You like sort of like float or think, and you float amongst the world, and you think. So that's essentially what the alien does. It floats or thinks. But the reason I alluded to the Ender Dragon on other videos was because it's sort of like the Ender Dragon to be the void, because what's the Ender Dragon in Minecraft is floating in the void, but the Ender Dragon is also the void itself. So the Ender, you know what I mean? It's floating. And I'm not using the word, since it's a dragon, you might say, is it flying? No, it's not. It's floating. So I float upon the objects. I'm floating upon this seat. I'm floating upon these clothes that, sort of fall upon myself. And yeah, so it's essentially like, to be the Ender Dragon or the space alien, in other words, would be to be like the void. So it's like you're inside the void, yet you're also the void itself. So that's essentially what I'm talking about there. But regarding neuristic thoughts, you might, it's implied that since you're a space alien, you have a superior intellect. So since you have a superior intellect, but also like you're the most intelligent. So I want to differentiate between the words intelligent and intellect. So intelligence is like your propensity to perceive the world in the most logical sense or something, but logic would apply to your intellect, because that's like the thoughts that you think. And the Ender Dragon also suffers from aphantasia. So due to aphantasia, it has no visual memories. So it's only possible to think with words, and it's not possible to recall things. Like, it is possible to recall what something looks like if you looked upon it once more, but it's not possible to visualize inside your head what it looks like. So I suffer from aphantasia. So that's why I thought of this. So you essentially only think with words. But then since you're a space alien, there's also this dichotomy between what's a space alien and what's a human. So humans, I think, develop differently than the space alien. So due to something I call the future tense. So due to the future tense, the human evolves differently than a space alien. So I call this the future tense. So this would imply like on the moment, I'm also on the future tense. So this would imply anything that happens prior or since the moment. So that's essentially what the future tense is. Anything happening in 3D space before or upon the moment. That's essentially what the future tense is. And due to the future tense, the alien develops differently. But also due to the fact than a human. But also due to the fact that the space alien is isolated. So you could think that any conscious individual, due to being an individual, is isolated. But the alien is like isolated in a different sense than humans, because it's not like affected by humans the same way that humans are affected by one another. So like essentially like it's not like affected by something outside of itself. It's affected by something outside of itself, but like inside of itself it's affected. So a human might be affected by something outside of itself, by something outside of itself. But the alien is affected by something outside of itself, by something inside of itself. So that's sort of the difference between how the alien is affected than a human. And then also I'll state, what else could I state? Due to neuristic thoughts, you sort of think of the world differently. So since you have the ability to know the void like this, you sort of think of the world in a different sense, and to know that you're developed differently, you have developed differently than other people. So, yeah. What else could I talk about? I mean, there's lots of things that you could think about to describe what it's like to be a space alien, to sort of recognize what it is that the space alien is fucking thinking about, pardon my language, but what the alien is thinking about. It's essentially the things that I think about. And I think I have like I said, the alien must suffer superior intellect, but also like superior intelligence if intellect was supposed of intelligence, I suppose. But to state that the alien is floating, well, you could state that the alien floats or thinks amongst all these objects and amongst the other subjects about. So I call those objects and subjects. So this is like an object, but those people are subjects. So you float about these people and these subjects and these objects, and you're just floating, but you're also thinking at the same time. But I suppose the thinking would also be implied of floating, because it's something that the alien does. And also something that I thought about is that since the alien walks, like suppose you're in it, or no, since you float, let's not use the word walk. Since you float is the floating of yourself, because I thought, yes, I suppose it's not only something that you're doing is floating, but it's like, are you it's not only something that you're doing is floating, but it's like you also float. So I mean, is that something of yourself? I guess so. But also, like, I don't know. I thought of this last night. I can't recall how to word it. Or maybe it's like you're the alien, but you float. Or it's like the alien, so you're the alien, you're the Ender Dragon, so you float. And the Ender Dragon is probably the most accurate description to describe things like this. But then something of the perception of the alien would be that the alien also has the ability to perceive how the universe evolves. So you sort of perceive how the universe evolves, and essentially what this is like would be well, let's talk about some multiple things. I was going to talk about the ability of I know and to perceive how the universe evolved. So since the alien is Leni Wakura, It's essentially like I'm conscious of all calculations on the planet. So this is essentially means like I'm conscious of how these calculations inside of computers are evolving, but also I'm conscious of how um, analogous objects evolve themselves. Yet the calculations are technically analog, yet comprised of zeros or ones once interpreted by the computer. So suppose I was still computing, so that means I'm the one interpreting those zeros and ones that are going through those computers, because otherwise it would just seem like electricity and it's just some analogous thing. But I interpret it as zeros and ones since I'm still calculating. So I thought, yes, I'm. Oh, this is what I was gonna state. Yes, I'm still calculating. So like I'm calculating all these things, and I'm also perceiving with my sensory, perceiving how the universe evolves. So like the universe is evolving in the present moment. Like the watch, if you look at my watch, the time is like going in a circle because it's evolving. So it's like you perceive how it's evolved whether you're looking at it or not, since you have that ability. And you're not just perceiving what's immediately before you, but you perceive the whole of the thing. And I'm not certain if humans are exactly like that because I don't know, but that's how the alien perceives the world. It might be something like it's strange with humans because I was gonna state if you're analog, suppose you're still calculating, you're also a sound. So the space alien is a sound. So I call it the sound of nothing, or the Ender Dragon. So this is essentially means that if the alien is a sound, then an analog over digital sound. So the sound will be analog over digital. That means the alien is also comprised of the computations that it's computing. So it's like the alien is the computation, yet also I'm still computing. So that's the thing I put, and that's how I'm able to interpret the electricity going through computers as I perceive it evolving, because I know that because I'm still calculating, and it's analog over digital sound. But something I was going to say. Yeah, but so it's like you perceive the universe evolved. And regarding the ability of I know, so this is an ability that the alien suffers of to basically state that I know things. So this implies that like I know how the universe so it's like not it's not just like I perceive how the universe evolves. It's like I also know all the things. Like I just know. So like if I had to think about something, I know I know. Yet so it's like I just know. It's just that simple. I know. So like let's say for example, what's an example of I know? So let's say for example, I mean this is very simple. I know this lighter is blue. So I mean I can see that just by looking at it. I know the lighter is blue. So that's an example of I know. But that's something that like anyone could figure out, right? But if you state like I know that someone who I had never met before is, let's say they're like 21 years old, and you just fucking know that. It's like how could you know that? You don't even know the person. How do you know they're 21 years old? Since you fucking know. See, as an example, and you can discern the I know through perhaps perception, but also just by thinking with words. So let's say I wanted to like know something. Like let's say. Let me think of an example. Let's say I forgot to lock my door, but I'm like, did I lock my door or not? But then you think, I know I locked my door. So you go back to your room and your door is locked. So that means you know that you locked the door. It's like an example of I know. I don't know. It's pretty simple just to like state I know things. I mean, that's why I use the example of the lighter, because it's just like I know the lighter is blue. But it's also like to state something like, I don't know. I know that the quasar in Sector 7 is pulsating right now. Like, oh shit, I know that. You know what I mean? So yeah, this is the end of the video.